Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us here today. Today's webinar is going to be all about the MakerBot Sketch Classroom. So thank you so much for joining us, and my name is Andrea. I am part of the MakerBot education team, been here for 4 years, and super excited to talk to you guys about the new MakerBot Sketch Classroom. If you go to the next slide, we can take a look to see just what's in store for us. So we do have quite a bit to touch on, so we're going to talk just a little bit about us, and then we're going to dive into the Sketch Classroom, all of the resources that it comes with, and then how we can ensure success for your classroom. And before we get started, just want to let you guys know that feel free to ask any questions that you might have. We do have a lovely moderator here, and she'll be collecting your questions throughout the webinar, and then towards the end we'll be taking some time to answer them. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to focus a little bit on 3D printing and where it stands today. So I think from education we can see that 3D printing has bled into a lot of professional industries. And if we go into the next slide, we can take a look at this little quote. So 3D printing is changing new product development across industries, including automotive, aerospace, maritime, medical, sports, railway, and defense. So we can see just how much 3D printing is bleeding into all industries across the board. If we go into the next slide, we can actually see some of the industries and how 3D printing is applied. And even going on to the next slide, we see articles that had just come out this month on 3D printing. If we go to the next slide. So some of them here are cloning musical heritage in the key of 3D, printing a concrete bridge in 14 hours, and then 3D printing helping athletes heal from injuries. So things that we might not normally think can be applied with 3D printing, people are finding ways to apply it and really advance the industry forward. And now the question we ask ourselves, if we go to the next slide, is how do we bring this to education? So in the next slide, we'll see it's just MakerBot education, but we're going to talk a little bit about how we're bringing 3D printing into education and how we're helping educators really succeed with bringing it into the classroom. So here you can see, just go back. So here at MakerBot, we're more than just a 3D printer. We're an ecosystem where we strive to have both educators and students thrive in the classroom and outside of it. We continue to add to our ecosystem today by continuously innovating on what we have to offer to education. And so we're going to be diving into that a little bit more just in a bit. But if we go to the next slide, we can see how 3D printing is the future of instructional technology. So here at MakerBot, we support national standards and initiatives in reshaping education. And if you've been following us for some time, you probably already have an idea of how we do that. But we support STEM education, project-based learning, 21st century career skills, deeper student engagement, which is vital, and design thinking skills across subjects. I think a very important one here is student engagement, because we can try all day to make our students care about what we're trying to teach them, but they won't care unless they're directly engaged, unless they have a direct connection with what they're learning. And that's what 3D printing does in the classroom. So if we go to the next slide, we can talk about something very exciting. So what is the MakerBot Sketch Classroom? And we're going to start off by pieces here. So I think one of the most important pieces here are the printers. So with the Sketch Classroom, you actually have 2 printers that you're getting in your classroom. These are 2 printers that are included, and you can see them printing behind me right now. And you may not be able to hear them, right? So that's a great thing. We have them running, we have the mic fairly close, and I'm hoping you can still hear me pretty clearly. With the printers, you also have, and actually if we go to the next slide, I can elaborate on it a little bit more. We have a flexible build plate. They're printing right now, so I'm not going to take them off, but they're quite flexible, just like you can see in the image. It has an intuitive interface, so this is a touch screen, and you can actually manipulate it, get what you want. You can load filament, unload, start a print, save files, do what you need to do. And then it is also classroom friendly. So it has an enclosed chamber, and you can see, unlike a lot of 3D printers in education today, you can actually see from almost all angles from it, even from the top. it has a side filament spool holder, and I'm just going to remove this. And you can see we have the filament loaded from the back here. Here you can see this is a spool that we actually have for the printers. And so for the Sketch Classroom, you actually have 4 spools of filament that come with the classroom set. And you can see these are a little bit larger than our spools of filament that we regularly have, so you're getting a little bit more. So it's 4 of these and then 2 mini spools as well. There's also a particulate filter as well, tucked away in the back, just for extra classroom friendliness. And then if we move on to the next component, like we said in the beginning, we're not just a company that sells you 3D printers, right? We're a company that wants to support you through every step of the process, and that's what we really work to do with the Sketch Classroom. So one of the first things here, which I think is super important, is the MakerBot Cloud. And I'll touch on all of these a little bit more, but with the MakerBot Cloud, you're able to handle your classroom's prints from the cloud. So from any browser, you're able to connect to your printer and send files off to print ahead of time. Then we have access to over 600 lesson plans. And here you can see just a few examples of them. So we have things like math expressions, we have fidget spinner science, and that deals with the angular momentum of I'm forgetting. But we have a bunch of lesson plans that span K through 12. And then we also have the certification program, and that's for both teachers and students. So if we go to the next slide, we'll be able to talk about some of these a bit more. So the lesson plans, here are just a few of the lesson plans we have. So we have 600 lesson plans, right? These are 5 of them, and you can see how they can apply across the grid. So we have something for science, engineering, technology, math, art. We also have lesson plans for geography, history, language arts. Pretty much anything you can think of, we have. And if we go to the next slide, you can actually see the whole package of the Sketch Classroom. So just to summarize, we have the 2 printers, we have 4 spools of filament, 2 spatulas, and 2 wire cutters, just to make post-processing a little bit easier, 4 build plates, and 4 large spools of filament, and 2 mini spools of filament. And all of this is for $17.99. So 2 printers and all the resources that you need for $17.99. So I did mention the MakerBot Cloud and student and teacher certification. We're going to talk about those just a little bit more. And also be sure to ask questions in the chat. All right, so MakerBot Cloud. So like I said, MakerBot Cloud is our new cloud-based 3D printing file management software. So what is that really? And I think for a lot of people, a lot of teachers, when they first get their 3D printer or their sets of 3D printers, they find they run into a common issue, and that's how do I manage all my students' files when I have such a limited amount of time? So we've heard those pain points, and we've started working on what we call MakerBot Cloud. Through MakerBot Cloud, you're able to have your students actually send you their files that they're needing to print for their projects to one location, to MakerBot Cloud. And through that location, you as the teacher are able to choose when those files print and what printer they're going to print to. So with that feature, you're able to better maximize the time that you have, and you're able to maximize the amount of time that you can print with these printers. It makes classroom printing a lot easier. You're able to carry out your projects a lot faster and more efficiently. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see some screenshots of what that looks like. So here you can see it might be a little bit small, the details, but you can see how you can queue up your prints, the prints that you haven't printed yet, but they're queued up to print, the things that are printing now and to which printer, and your recent history, so you can actually see which files you've already printed. So if a student is looking for their file, they're asking if it's already been printed, you can go through that recent history and see when it was printed, on which printer it was printed in as well. Going to the next slide, you can also see the visibility that you have on your printers, even when you're not in the classroom. So say you're away at a conference, you're at home, you're on vacation, you can still check to see how those printers are doing. You can also pause a print, start a print, and I believe you can also load and unload filament. And now we're going to switch gears a little bit to MakerBot certification. So we're going to take quite a deep look. We're going to start with certification for educators. So MakerBot certification for educators actually comes in 2 levels. We're going to talk about the first one. So level 1 is MakerBot operator. So through MakerBot operator, you're actually able to get trained on how to use our printers. Most importantly, you learn about what 3D printing is, what it actually means, what you can do with it, and also how you can troubleshoot it, right? So you as the teacher don't want to have to spend time, calling us, saying, what do you need to do to get it back up and running, or maybe there's something that may be confusing, or maybe you're a little bit cautious of even wanting to move the printer, right? So through this operator program, you're actually able to get very comfortable with the printer. You'll see that they're actually quite durable, and you'll be able to start prints, you'll be able to troubleshoot, you'll be able to know how to use MakerBot Cloud as well. So it'll really prepare you. We released the MakerBot certification for teachers because a big pain point that we heard from our teachers was that they received a new piece of technology at the beginning of the school year, just on their table with no training with it, right? They didn't know how to use it, they didn't know how to integrate it. And so we really developed this program to help teachers start using this technology in the classroom to avoid the big problem that some people come with saying, my printer has turned into a paperweight, right? Which we never want. And so the second solution to that is level 2 of certification for teachers, and that is in the next slide, and that is Curriculum Creator. And so through Curriculum Creator, we go through the 3D printing process. We show you how to manage multiple printers and print files. We show you how to troubleshoot students' files, because sometimes students can have really amazing ideas, out of this world ideas, but sometimes those ideas are a little bit difficult to transfer into an actual tangible shape, right? So we go through that sort of training. We also show you how to begin your first lesson plan with 3D printing, okay? And we have a couple examples in the next 2 slides of projects that our educators have done through the certification program. So the first one here is from Curriculum Creator. And in this assignment, teachers have to print a print kit. And so what that is, it's a collection of prints that actually show what 3D printing is. So kind of the nuts and bolts of it. What is the internal support structure for a print? What does it mean to print 2 shells? All things that at first glance may be a little bit confusing, but as you go through the program, you become a pro with using these 3D printers. The second slide are some lesson plans that our educators have created through the training program. And so you can see some of them here. They can range in difficulty from fairly easy to very difficult. And these are all lessons that were developed through the program that are now delivered in classrooms. And now we're going to go to student certification. And again, please feel free to ask questions if you have any. So with student certification, it actually comes in 4 levels, and I'm just going to break it down for you. I won't go too deep into this slide because we'll be touching on all of the components. But the next slide actually looks fairly similar as teacher certification. So the level 1 is operator, 3D printer operator. You'll find that this is fairly similar to the teacher version of operator. And that's because we wanted to give students the know-how on how to actually use these printers, to give them a sense of ownership of the technology so that they could take it, learn with it, and actually develop their own inventions, their own prototypes. And then level 2 switches gears into design thinking. And so I know in school we do learn a lot about design thinking, but this is more design thinking with 3D printing and how that really opens doors to designing solutions to a student's environment, to problems that they might identify around them. So design thinking deals with the design thinking cycle. The cycle that we use that you can see towards the bottom is ask, sketch, and make. So through ask, they identify a problem. Through sketch, they brainstorm possible solutions. They think about how the solution may work in the actual environment, what factors they need to consider. And then for Make, they actually start prototyping. So that's when they're using these printers, seeing, what may work, what doesn't. If something didn't work the first time around, what can they do to actually resolve the issue? The next level is when they actually put it into practice. So this is applied design thinking. In this level, they are actually given a project where they have to identify a problem around them. And through this problem, they have to ask questions to either the people affected by this problem or the factors around it and how they can design a solution around it. So this project comes with a presentation that the student can actually track their progress through Ask, Sketch, and Make. So all the steps of the process are recorded, and they're able to show at the end the solution that they create for the problem they identified through 3D printing. And then the very last component of certification for students is design for 3D printing. So with design for 3D printing, you go into the details of 3D printing, so what it all means. So you can see in the image there, there's where our lovely colleague Felipe is actually demonstrating how supports work. He's showing the different ways that supports might affect a print. And that's super important, especially when you're getting more advanced into 3D printing. If your students have really taken to the technology and are looking for ways to really push the technology. So here are some designs that Felipe created. And so I'm sure he went through some design thinking to actually find designs that really showed off great qualities of the printer. But you can see how we use design thinking here. And this is just an example of how you may use the design for 3D printing component. Then if we go to the next slide, we can talk about ensuring success. And so ensuring success is absolutely important because it's not just about bringing the 3D printer and the resources with you, right? You have to know where you're going before the printer comes in. So if we go to the next slide, we can talk about how to ensure success. So step 1, provide resources and support to teachers to get started. So that means, in a nutshell, that's really MakerBot Sketch Classroom. So we work to provide you with the resources and the support to help you get started. But it's always great to have additional support from your colleagues, from your higher-ups as well. And then number 2 is pilot with 1 to 2 classes and identify your champion. So a lot of times we've seen that we have champion teachers that are working to bring in the technology into the classroom, into the whole school. And so we want to help those champions succeed, and also the ones who are not so sure about how to bring 3D printing into the classroom, which is why we work to really provide you with all of the resources. And then number 3, budget for ongoing costs. And so I'm going to touch on this one a little bit later, but it's very important to keep up with ongoing costs that may occur. So you've bought your classroom, but maybe a year from now you may have to buy more filament. Have you put that into potential costs for the future? Is there money allotted for that? And then number 4, plan your physical space. We do recommend the Sketch Classroom for the classroom, but your environment may be just a little bit different, and that's absolutely okay. So you have to think about how you're going to place your Sketch printers and how they're going to be used. If they're going to be used daily, maybe a couple times a week. Sometimes we've seen them used once or twice a month, but we definitely want to get that number up higher. And then number 5 is absolutely crucial, and that's obtain necessary computer software. So in schools, it can be very tricky to download new software. You have to get the softwares approved. You have to get them downloaded onto your computer. You usually don't have admin requirements to be able to download the software. And that can be a huge blocker when you're looking to implement new technology into the classroom. So absolutely consider what will be necessary. Someone's recommended to me before your printers arrive, talk to your IT team. Talk to them to see what do you actually need to get this going, so you don't have to wait 2 to 3 months to get your software downloaded. And luckily though, with the MakerBot Cloud, you don't need to download any software, so we've gotten rid of that little hassle. And then if we go to the next slide, you can see the MakerBot grant guide. So we just released the 2020 MakerBot Grant Guide that came out a few weeks ago. And if you're looking to secure funding for your MakerBot Sketch Classroom, we highly recommend checking this grant guide out. It'll be included with the email that goes out to everyone watching today. And so with the grant guide, we've identified, I believe, over 50 grants that can be used for your classroom. Some of them are specific to state, some of them are specific to how you're wanting to use these printers. And we also included 10 tips to secure a grant for your classroom or school. And so these tips were written by one of our educators who was very excited about bringing 3D printing into her classroom. But she faced a couple roadblocks when trying to bring it in. And so she gave us her advice, and she created her list of tips to secure the grant guide. To secure grants. And then finally we have the 10-step classroom 3D printing action checklist. And that walks you through, after you've secured your printer, what are the steps you need to take to secure success. Okay. And then something that you also should know going in when you're looking to ensure success for the future is, what is your return on investment going to be? So here we've broken it down into K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. So for K through 5, you're really looking to inspire curiosity and STEAM. You want to create learning models for students. You want to establish spatial reasoning. You also want to start giving them kind of the tools to start designing for themselves, showing them how they can engineer solutions as well. For 6 through 8 is when you want to start developing design thinking skills. So that's when you want to start showing them how they can identify problems around them. And it can be something as simple as a wobbly desk. You have a wobbly desk in your classroom, how do you fix it? You can use 3D printing to create a support for it, to stop the wobbliness. That's one example of how you can bring it at that level. And then 9 through 12 is when you really want to start pushing it, right? So you were wanting to teach them professional 3D design skills. Hopefully at that point they're learning not just Tinkercad, but Fusion 360 or Inventor or something more advanced as well. You want to simulate real-world engineering problems. And you want them to develop college readiness through advanced design thinking. And I think that's absolutely important because now we're seeing 3D printers in higher education as well, and obviously in professional industries. So the sooner that we get students comfortable with 3D printing, with designing for 3D printing, with creating solutions and being proactive about the technology that they have, the more ready that they'll be for the future when they enter higher education and the real world. And that kind of brings us to the end of the presentation. So I may have gone a little bit fast through some of the slides. Do let me know if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer. We can actually go to the next slide too. That one repeated a bit.
Cool. Okay. Questions.
Lots of questions.
Can students use Tinkercad to send their prints?
So the question was, can students send or use Tinkercad to send files to their printer? So the answer is yes. So we actually have Tinkercad integration with the Sketch Classroom with our MakerBot products. So yes, if your students have an account or you have a classroom on Tinkercad, you're actually able to send files to the printer through Tinkercad. So it's a very easy process.
Is this process easy enough for a student to facilitate themselves?
Absolutely. So, for example, like the Tinkercad question, or let me go back, is this process easy enough for a student to do themselves? Yes. Using the Tinkercad example, it takes about 3 or 4 clicks to get you from Tinkercad to printing on the printer. So it is very easy, and even using MakerBot Cloud is fairly easy for the student. With MakerBot Cloud, students don't actually need to create an account, so it gets rid of a lot of that headache as well. The printers themselves are fairly intuitive. I won't cancel the prints right now, but it's very easy to go through the menu to go hit print, hit your file, and hit go. So I'd say for any student, I'd say maybe above 2nd grade, 3rd grade, they'd be able to do it.
In school, we have to set up the printers every day, and then at the end of the day, we put them away. How long does it take to set up the printers?
So the question was, for some schools, they have to set up the printers every day and then take them down every day, and how long does that process take? Well, it's very simple to put away these printers and put them back up. It takes a couple clicks to set them up. And so there's just an on and off switch here in the back. You start it up. It takes about 45 seconds to get started. And then you are back on the home menu and you're ready to start printing. To turn them off, it's fairly simple as well. You just hit that switch in the back. If you're transporting your printers for any reason, you're always wanting to keep your box and packaging material just to make sure it's transported safely.
How many filament spools come with Sketch Classroom?
Sure. So with the Sketch Classroom, you get 4 spools of filament, and it's 4 of these, which are quite substantial. You also get 2 mini spools of filament that come inside the printer.
And how much are those 1 kilogram or?
These are 1 kilogram, yes.
Would Sketch Classroom be a good fit for a makerspace for students to submit the files they need, or is this meant to stay in a classroom environment?
That's a great question. So the question was, is the MakerBot Sketch meant to live in a makerspace where students can send their files as they need, or is it meant to live in a classroom? So the answer can really be both. For the Sketch Classroom, as it comes with 2 printers, I highly recommend having it for a classroom. If you're looking to have students printing in a makerspace sort of environment, Sketch Classroom will work well. I suggest scaling up from there so you can really maximize on how much printing the students can do. Keeping in mind that if you get more printers, you get a lot more filament with each printer.
How many students do you usually use against those 2 printers?
So the question was, how many students for these 2 printers? So we do recommend a classroom, keeping in mind that we're not going to have 30 students printing 30 files on the bill plate at one time, but you're able to cycle through projects a lot faster. So for instance, here just as an example, we're printing fairly large objects. So we can see we're going to be printing something like this on the printer, which is just one object. It's really just meant to show how big the printer can print. But typically, if you are printing projects, you're probably going to be printing something that's a little bit smaller, about this size. And you can fit about 4 or 5 of these on the bill plate. So you can imagine that you're printing about 5 projects on each printer. So that's 10 projects. Printing is going to take about, say, 8 hours to print. But within 2 or 3 days, you'll be able to cycle through your whole classroom's projects.
Somebody wanted to know about the prints that are on the printers right now. Like,
Okay.
what size are they, and what are they going to be?
Sure. So let me see. This one is actually the cube, and so this one's just a little bit smaller. It's going to be this guy right here. And I don't know how close we are to camera, but you can see how this prints. And then the next one right over here is actually this print right here.
And how big does can a print go?
So the printer can print 6 by 6 by 6 inches. And this is one of the prints with the build dimensions maxed out.
Are the student certifications self-paced?
It is, yes. So both student and teacher certification is self-paced. They can take it at their own speed. You can also work it into your existing curriculum. If you're looking to bring in more design thinking with 3D printing, incorporate more projects with 3D printing, these 2 certifications are great for that.
I don't think we have too many more questions. Let's see. What software do you need for design and slicing? Does MakerBot have their own software?
Great question. So what software do you need for design and slicing, and does MakerBot have their own software? So the first one is you can use really any sort of design software for these printers. Usually recommend that you export them as STLs. So you can use Tinkercad, you can use Fusion, Inventor, Rhino, and a plethora of other design softwares. For slicing, though, you can only use the MakerBot print software and our MakerBot cloud-based software. So those are the 2 that will be able to prepare your files to print with these printers.
Can you talk a little bit more about the continuing costs for using this?
Yeah, so continuing costs can be Things, especially filament, will be a continuing cost. The amount of filament that this classroom comes with, it's 4 spools and the 2 mini spools, and that's usually good for about a semester of printing if you're printing continuously. If you're not printing continuously, or maybe a couple times a week or a few times a month, it'll probably stretch into a whole academic year. Aside from the filament, there may be other costs. So with these printers, just like our previous printers, like the Replicator Plus, the extruders are detachable, and so extruders are considered consumables. They are always heated up to a very high temperature, and then cooled down, and then heated up again, and then you have this filament running through it, and so over time it will wear down. So associated costs may be an extra extruder down the line, very down the line. And then also these printers do come with a 1-year warranty.
And about how much does filament cost?
Filament costs, I believe it is $55, $65.
Cool, that's cool. Is the build plate heated? Does the enclosure control the temperature inside?
The build plate is heated, and so right now we don't have it heated up too high. I forget the temperature that it's heated up at. It's at 100 degrees Celsius. The enclosure won't actively control the temperature inside, but it is enclosed, so you will usually have a consistent temperature.
So somebody's giving kind of a scenario, 32 students in a class, 5 classes. How many printers would we need if every student needs to print at least 2 times per month? I know, it's like an algebra exam at that point.
Let me see if I can repeat that back. So 32 students per class, it's 5 classes. Every student needs to print at least 2 times a month. I wish I was great at math on the spot. But let's see, my colleague Felipe is writing the numbers here for me right now.
How many what?
How many?
150 students, and they need to print twice a month.
So that's
minimum.
So that is around 300 prints, 320 prints.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
The comments are saying 320, yeah.
Yeah.
It also depends on the size of the print.
It depends, right, so it depends on the size, and you can imagine, based on our research, typically when you're introducing 3D printing into the classroom, when you're working in an elementary, middle school space, or even the 9th and 10th grade, you're typically printing around this size, about 2 by 2 by 2 inches, maybe 3 inches cubed.
If you had only 2 printers, you would cycle every 2 months through all of the students.
Okay.
Twice or just once?
No, once through all of the students.
Every 2 months?
Every 2 months.
Okay.
Like only 2 printers
Yeah.
for 160 students.
Okay.
That's where having more
So
printers.
you probably want...
Yeah.
Right, so in that situation, if you're
8.
looking for your students to print twice a month, then we'd probably recommend getting
8 printers, I think.
more than 1 sketch classroom. So I won't restrict it too much, but also keeping in mind that you're able to print about 4 projects on a build plate at a time. I can get back to you on the math.
For specifics, I can call that.
Yeah. But for specifics and for a little bit more time to work out the math in those situations, please do call our sales line. They'll be able to help you out. You can also reach out to hello@makerbot.com, and we'll be able to work it all out for you there.
Can you talk a little bit about the warranty and support?
Yes, so the warranty is a 1-year warranty, and so I believe that covers anything happening to the printers. If for some reason your printers arrived damaged, if the shipping company had a little bit of fun delivering your printers and your resources to you, we have our support team here in Brooklyn, and they're right down the hall. And they are live Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And they'll be able to help you out with anything. They're a very knowledgeable group of people who are very passionate about 3D printing and making sure that your issues are resolved very timely. If you go after that 1 year, you can also choose to purchase our MakerCare warranty support. So through MakerCare, you're able to get expedited service and usually a same-day response through email.
And do you know if support is U.S. only?
So it depends, really. So for U.S. and Canada, Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to repeat the question. So, is support U.S. only? So, support here, our support team supports the U.S. and Canada. At times, we also support cases globally. But each country has, I believe, dedicated resellers, and they also provide their own support.
I think those are the main questions. Is there anything else that you want to shout out about this printer? What's your favorite thing about this printer?
My favorite thing about this printer, I love being able to print multiple things at a time. I feel like when I'm prototyping, I can print multiple iterations of things that may work or may not, and I'll take the best of what works and put it together. I really enjoy being able to see the spool of filament here on the side without having to take a very deep look around. But also especially the cloud software, because I'm able to just print remotely. I can monitor my prints remotely as well. I forgot to mention that these printers also have cameras, so you can do remote monitoring. And you can have control of your printers from far away. You don't have to be in the room hovering over them to see how they're doing.
The print quality, like that part is very complex.
Yeah, absolutely. The print quality on these printers is absolutely phenomenal. So you can see, I don't know how close you can actually get, but you can see the layer alignment here and how clean these prints do get. And even in this one, which is quite a complex print.
People were wondering, is it just PLA or is there other filament pieces as well?
So the question is it just PLA? Can you print with other filaments? So primarily we do recommend printing with PLA, but we also have tough PLA available. And if you're wondering what tough PLA is kind of a blend of the properties of ABS, but made with a PLA sort of composite. And so what that means is that tough PLA is a bit more flexible. It has a higher tensile strength, so you can do a little bit more experimenting in what you want to do, especially when you're looking to design something that might be going under duress.
Can you talk a little bit more about student certification and its costs, if you want to scale up?
Sure. So with student certification, again, you're going through learning how to use the printer, how to troubleshoot it, how to really take ownership of it, both for the teachers and students. You're learning design thinking for 3D printing, so you're able to design solutions through 3D printing and really speak to them. So even through the curriculum training, we go through how to present your idea, how to defend your ideas as well. So the costs, student certification is scalable, so we do have pricing for class level, school level, and district level. If you do want to learn more about the pricing, do reach out to our sales team.
Cool. Let's see, I think that's it. Somebody asked if we have any spatulas or snips to show.
I don't have any spatulas here, but they are fairly wide. They're very, very flat. So they are really, really great. They're thin, so it's very easy to get under the print if you're having trouble popping it off. But again, these build plates are fairly flexible, very, very flexible, and so you're able to really pop these prints right off. And I think we are about out of questions. If anyone does come up with other questions, do feel free to shoot us an email. We'll be happy to take them. If you have any questions about the Sketch Classroom, or if you want to continue the conversation, please do reach out to our sales team. We're very happy for having you guys here today, for joining us. We hope you enjoyed everything that we presented, and we hope to catch you next time. Thank you.